Welcome, everyone. We're just waiting a few minutes for all the participants to join, and we'll start in about 10 seconds or so. My name is Betty Pluis, and I'm with the Steering Committee of Climate Legacy, and I'm going to be chairing this session today. I'm really looking forward to your participation as well as our two wonderful guests. Okay, everyone. As I said, my name is Betty Pluis. I'm on the Steering Committee of Climate Legacy, and I'm based in Ottawa. Ottawa, which is built on the unceded and traditional territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people, and which today is at the moment 30 degrees, going to 35 degrees, and what the Ottawa Public Health is calling a life-threatening heat event, which is affecting millions of people in North America today, mostly in the Northeast. Today, we're going to explore the rising role of climate litigation as a strategy for addressing the climate crisis. And we're very fortunate today to have two guests who know a great deal about this. Climate Litigation Network says that at the moment there are 80 court cases on climate before the courts. And the question that's being asked there is, are governments obligated to protect people from climate change? To help us explore this, as I say, we have two wonderful guests. The first is Pia Hollenstein, who's joining us from Switzerland today. Pia was one of the founders of the Swiss Association of Climate Seniors, which on April the 9th won their climate case in the European Court of Human Rights. It was a verdict that caused a stir worldwide overnight, and they became famous. And that's why we're so thankful that you chose us as one of the groups that you would talk to about your experience. Many believe that the verdict in this case could set a precedent for further lawsuits worldwide. Last week, the lower house in Switzerland rejected the court's decision. But we understand that the Federal Council will have the final decision, and that will be coming forward sometime in August. So Pia today, she's going to talk with us about how they organized, what challenges they faced, and what the next steps are. We are also delighted to have Tracy London with us. Tracy is the Executive Director of Ecojustice, which is the largest environmental law organization, nonprofit in Canada. And they've been supporting the Mather et al. Case here in Canada, which has some similar elements to the Swiss case. She will comment on what the European Court decision might mean for climate litigation here in Canada and elsewhere. After some discussion with both Pia and Tracy, we'll have about 20 minutes for questions from the participants. And Ricky Stewart, also from Climate Legacy, will help us monitor the questions and direct them to the appropriate person. Please write your name and the name of your group in the chat. And if you have any questions, put those in the question and answer. So we're going to start with a short video that will set the scene for our discussion today.
I am so shocked, positively shocked, so happy, because we could do something. We could do something. We could contribute to the future, to a better future for our children.
Nous pouvons être très fiers, nous, les aînés et eux, pour le climat, d'avoir amené pour la première fois à la Cour le climat et les droits fondamentaux. Et la Cour nous a reconnu nos droits fondamentaux à un climat sain et à ce que notre pays fasse ce qu'il n'a pas fait jusque-là, c'est-à-dire prenne des mesures ambitieuses pour protéger notre santé et protéger évidemment l'avenir.
It is an important judgment, perhaps a historic judgment, that will probably attract the attention of many countries outside Switzerland.
I really hope that we will win against all the countries. So I'm really disappointed that this didn't happen. But the most important thing is that the court has said the Swiss women's case that governments must cut their emissions more to protect the human rights. So I really think their win is a win for us too, and a win for everyone.
Great. So now we're going to start with some questions for Pia. Pia, could you tell us how your group got started? You're on mute. You're still on mute.
Sorry.
There you are.
Yeah, that's a bit special, and it was not so easy to find out the right way. Anyway, the fact is in Switzerland, in parliament, you do not get majorities for needed action to avoid the climate catastrophe. That's one point. The other point, which was very important to start, was the fact that in the Netherlands, one NGO had a great success with the lawsuit against the state. And because of that winning, Greenpeace Switzerland asked themselves, how could we do a good claim in Switzerland? And before we started, Greenpeace commissioned a study to clarify which would be the best way to legal action. One thing is, which is special for Switzerland, we have no constitutional right to sue. So the result of that research was the best chance we would have, or Greenpeace would have, if there is a group who could claim which is much more affected by the climate, by the heat waves, the climate change than others. And this was the reason that elderly women, because they are more affected during heat waves, they do not deal so easy like all the others. They die more often because of the heat waves. So there was the decision taken, we need a group of elderly women as an NGO, and they could do a good thing suing the parliament. That's why we founded an NGO, and I was in the board from the beginning on. That's it.
Right. And so how did you manage to attract women from all over Switzerland with the different language groups and the different interests and so many other actors on the scene? What challenges did you have in bringing together what's now, I understand, 3,600 women who are part of your group?
Yeah, in the beginning, we were not many, but as you already mentioned, it was important in Switzerland because of the 4 languages that we have someone in the board from all the different parts. I represent the eastern part of Switzerland, near to the border to Germany. And another one, the Italian-speaking part, French-speaking part. And we had to be retired already. And I was asked by Greenpeace if I would join and work as a board member, because Greenpeace knew me, obviously, from my political work before. I have been for 12 years or even more, 14, in the national parliament. And they knew that I'm quite consequent in my acting. So they asked me if I would be so kind and be a board member. And then we all of us in the board, we asked some women and some activists to come to that founding. And from then on, we had tried to have publicity in newspapers, in organized events. So it was we became the members because we were often in the public.
Mm-hmm. Right. So you spent time organizing together and getting to know other people. You got a lot of support from Greenpeace, which I understand was very important, both to the idea of the group and also then there was financial support during the course of the 8 years that you worked on this project. Was there support from other Swiss environmental organizations as well?
Well, what kind of support? They support us in a way they think we are good and they support, but not financially. That's from the beginning on, Greenpeace said, we support you financially, but we get quite some money from the members. 1/3 we can pay ourselves. And so far, with all these money for the lawyers, it costed over 1 million Swiss francs. That's quite something. Yes. 1/3 of that came in by the membership of not the membership, it's they just paid. We have no, that's maybe the secret. We have no membership fee because elderly women said, no, I have too many organizations already. I cannot have another one. When you tell them no membership fee, you only get twice a year asking for money, then it works and they become member. Mm-hmm. But from the other organizations, they support us in the, they think we are important, we are needed, and we have some exchange to some, but not financially. Right. Mm-hmm. But maybe it's important to know, we depend on Greenpeace, but we are an organization. We decide. It's not that we are on the line of Greenpeace, but we need the support from Greenpeace about the facts. They give us what's all about the knowledge, what we need to know. Right. And they also are in good contact with the lawyers. Yes. So they are a kind of, they bind us together. But we, as the NGO, we decide. Right. That's a very interesting collaboration. And I'm sure that there are many organizations who will be interested in knowing a bit more about the details of how that works. Mm-hmm. But I understand that you originally brought your court case to various courts in Switzerland, but they were not successful. How did you keep going through all of those trials and errors and not winning any for some time? Well, that's politics. I knew we won't have it the next day. And of course, it needs patience, it needs big joy, it needs a big good atmosphere among us, otherwise we would not have done it so many years. But we also knew we had to go from one step to the other in Switzerland first. And we didn't expect that we would win in Switzerland. We knew what's in their head. From the beginning on, in the future, we had the Human Rights Court in mind. But it took us quite a long time, one can say. Yes, it did. It did. And once you got started on your court cases, and then you decided to take it to the Human Rights Court, what kind of legal advice did you have? Well, we are all in the board lay people and many or most of the members too. So we needed good lawyers. Greenpeace was searching for, and they found the best, I'd say, environmental lawyer. That was Ursula Brunner. She already created the Swiss environmental law, but then she died, and her office, her successor, and her team do the legal work. That's important. And they have to explain what we need to know. But when we give interviews, we refer to the lawyers. Otherwise, we are not lawyers. So that's important to know what's your package.
Right. Know what your skills are and what you need to support you. What's been the impact in Switzerland of you winning the case?
It's about the impact again. Yeah. Let me see. My paper impact is so difficult for me.
What's been the reaction in Switzerland to you winning the case?
Yeah. It was a surprise for everybody. We, of course, hoped to win a lot. We didn't know 30% or 60%. But the fact is that no one in Switzerland, not even the politicians, not the government, thought that these old women would win. That's a big surprise. They are just old women. How could they win? And everybody was surprised. From that time on, let's say, the politicians woke up. They couldn't believe it too, and because they always know it better. The first reaction was, oh, what this court is telling is we already do, and that's just not true. I tell you, also in the public, you didn't read this paper. It's so complicated. It's so serious, taken up and down, and it's the fact Switzerland hasn't done enough. That's just true, and they deny. That's a problem.
So this is the decision that describes the case and why they came to this conclusion. When you say the paper, this is the court decision.
The court's decision, this 250
pages.
Pages, yes. But I would say the newspapers and so on, they are more on our side, most of them, because so far in the last years, whenever this Court for Human Rights made a decision, told Switzerland, you have to do this and that, we always did it immediately. Really, it was in the air that Switzerland is respecting human rights. That's why it shocked me so much that all those parliamentarians from before, they are away now, and the younger ones do not understand that this court is our court. The political right said, oh, that's a foreign a court from outside, from the EU, that's we do not need to respect. But we are member of the European Council, and all the members of the European Council have this court. It's our court also. So it's a bit, it's a shame how the politicians from the middle, also the middle and the right wing reacted, I must say.
Well, Switzerland has from our perspective, a rather complicated government system, which takes a while to understand. But can you tell us a bit more about what the reaction of the Swiss government has been to the decision?
The first day, one of the speakers of the government said, well, we will take it serious, and we respect it somehow. We will read it and we will inform. And the politician, that's the government. And then this reaction from the parliamentarian, majority right wing, came. And 2 weeks ago, before the second votation in parliament, the day before, they said, okay, we will present you in August what we think and how do we will realize that claim,
Right.
that result.
Yes,
Yeah.
that decision.
That decision.
Right. So what steps will you take between now and August to hope that this moves forward, as you've already put so much work into it?
Yeah. In Switzerland, there is not much hope that much would change, because this majority said, no, we are not going to do anything because we have done it already. We have to wait now until the Federal Council, these 7 executive people, that they tell to the public, to the parliamentarians, what is not done compared with the paper.
Right.
So, of course, we already sent them, all of them, parliamentarians, an email with the facts, but you know, it didn't help much. And we sent it to, we had a press conference, interested media people would listen, would write our position, would read, present our position. The countries around Switzerland, they might be on the same position as I am. And other ones from far away, they did not realize what's happened now. They think still it's a great decision, and they didn't know Switzerland is not on the top of the environmental subject yet.
Right.
That's a surprise.
So what advice would you give to people who are thinking they might like to take a case forward to courts in their own country? Or
Well, we have to tell them that this outcome is for EU. That's valid also for them. But in general, all outside Europe, one can say it's very important you have good facts, you need good lawyers, and you need money. And from the point on, when you tell them how much it would cost, small NGOs are disappointed, and they check that they are not able to do such a big thing. But the governments in Europe, they know that this result is valid for all their countries, which means they would be good if they do it now, if they do more. Otherwise, they can expect, or they have to expect, a claim, because besides the fact they haven't done enough, a second human rights violation is that Switzerland didn't give us the possibility to explain our thing. That's also no good Switzerland has done, which means all the NGOs not all the NGOs, those NGOs who stick on the klima and have some Rahmenbedingungen, some other facts, they are allowed to go to human rights court, and the governments would not already know, this group would win. So that's why actually they should do more. All those European countries should do more, not waiting until they have more claims, and they all would win.
Mm-hmm. So what has this journey of the last 7 or 8 years meant to you personally?
Yeah, it was a good experience, and it's what it was also before. I knew from my political years that often there is much time needed, but it's also a positive example that if you don't give up, you come to a point you might win. That's a really positive thing. You need big knowledge, which we had with these good lawyers. That's important. And might be one has to know you only get that far if you have a good atmosphere among your group, in the group. That's important. And we had it. We were lucky that we have no big problems, no conflicts, and so that was really one point which helped us to go so far, to work to go together so good.
Well, that takes skill too, and that's what although you didn't have legal knowledge, you knew how to build relationships, you knew how to network, you knew how to bring people along. So that was a major contribution. This is a rather odd question, but I'm sure you've heard this critique. Well, this is just a group of women from Switzerland. Switzerland is one of the richest countries in the world, and of course they're acting on climate change. Why listen to them? What do you think? What do you say to people that Switzerland is a rich country and they're doing well, but still you would like to? Why have you brought this case into prominence?
Yeah, these are the facts. And because it's like this, because we are a rich country, and because our generation destroyed a lot, we have a big responsibility because of that. And we cannot, and this responsibility is telling you, you are in the same boat, you are a part of it, and you have to support all the measures that the young people will have a future. And I always say the solution might be that, and in Switzerland especially, we have to learn to realize we ourselves are one spot of the whole world, and that's not true yet, not in our country. That you are you are also one part of the whole of the globalized world, and you have a responsibility also for the other countries. That's we have to learn yet, but it would be important. Yeah.
Well, bravo. Congratulations on 9 years of work. And we're going to hear now from Tracy about what she thinks from her perspective this win in the court in Europe means for climate litigation, both here in Canada and in other parts of the world. Thank you very much. We'll come back to you in a few minutes.
Interesting. Thank you.
And if you're okay, Pia, I really hope that you and I can have a conversation about this. It's such an honor to have this opportunity to meet you in this way. My name's Tracy. I'm on the unceded stolen lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. There was so much that you shared about your experience that we can really connect with and relate to at Ecojustice. You mentioned the extraordinary culture that you need in an organization to be able to work on such a singular goal, where you need so many people working together over many years through a very uncertain and stressful and very expensive legal process. And so I just want to thank everyone who's here with Ecojustice. When we looked at how many staff were involved in our Mather case, which, like your work, took several years and many stages, from thinking about the case of youth bringing forward their claim for their right to life and their own survival for their generation and future generations, and also similar kind of themes of the rights-based litigation that you took on in terms of equality rights and discrimination on the basis of age, that we saw that there were at least 50 staff at Ecojustice who have been involved in this work over the years. And it took that many people, like you said, like fine legal minds. You know, we have some of the most brilliant lawyers, and it sounds like also you were very mindful in terms of the kind of legal expertise that would be needed to bring this kind of litigation successfully forward. You also mentioned how multi-talented and multifaceted you needed to draw on people's strengths. And we also have folks who are expert communicators and also really strong law reform experts. Pia, you mentioned the amount of resources that are needed over many years. And I'm just really grateful for also all of the supporters that we have here today who have supported Ecojustice to have made our Mather youth litigation possible. And Pia, you also mentioned the kind of solidarity that we need between different environmental groups and just the important role that Greenpeace had in your work. And I just saw in the chat that there are also a number of our environmental partners, even some of our partners who are interveners in our case at the Court of Appeal for the province of Ontario. And so I just want to thank all of our staff, all of our supporters, and all of our Angle partners. So Pia, I really relate to how you need a whole movement surrounding this core group of like legal minds and activists, supporters making that possible. And then also the courage that you mentioned of folks willing to come forward to be the voice of their generation and to really make themselves vulnerable about their fears for the planet, but also for future generations. So I could also really relate to what you were describing in terms of how carefully you had to think about who those voices would be. And so we were really fortunate at Ecojustice to really be very intentional several years ago when we were thinking about which youth would be important. And it was in November 2019 when we launched our legal challenge. And so going back to 2019, our youth are now 16 and 28 years old. So it's not only when I hear you, Pia, like the many years of commitment, but I also think, I feel like I have to say the youth who are our litigants, just because really they're the ones who have had the courage to like speak on behalf of a generation, both within the courtroom, but as you know, Pia, like using the court of public opinion is also so vital to this fight, right? And so I just really want to thank Sophia Mather for all of her work with us, Zoe, Shailene, Shelby, Alexandra, Madison, and Lindsay, because Pia, I think you can also relate to the emotional labor, the long-term dedication to be able to go through what is feeling like you're coming up against the great power of a government and the uncertainty about whether or not they will even recognize climate as a fact. And the high barrier that it takes to align the right to life and security of person, equality rights, to align that up with climate facts, and to have the stamina and resources to go through many years of litigation. And so we were very fortunate, like you, to really feel the weight and responsibility of not wanting to set a poor legal precedent. That responsibility that we had to our youth who joined us in that case, our responsibility to youth and future generations across Canada, but also, like you said, Pia, like this global sense of responsibility too, knowing that any precedent that we set in Canada would have implications globally. And you want that precedent to be able to uphold the application of human rights in climate litigation. And so for us, our milestones is that in November 2020, a court recognized for the first time in Canadian history that climate change has the potential to violate our Charter of Human Rights. And then in September 2022, our case became the first children's climate case in the world to be considered on its merits on the basis of a full evidentiary record. And then recently, in April 2023, Mather became the first case to be decided after a full hearing of the evidence. And then we needed to go to the Ontario Court of Appeal in January 15th of this year. And now we are waiting with excitement and trepidation on what the decision will be upon appeal. And we feel that anticipation within our organization, with our youth litigants, with all of our supporters, in solidarity with all of our environmental organizations. So Pia, like there's so much that I can relate to you. I feel so honored that we get to work with so many extraordinary legal experts and activists to use climate litigation within a rights-based model to be able to fight for change. We're also kind of going through this process of taking milestone by milestone. And so I'm curious, from your perspective, thinking about how we're part of a global movement, what are your thoughts on how we need to work in solidarity globally for us to be able to support each other on each of our different kind of, not only our cases, but like raising domestic and global awareness of this work? Because the courts only take us so far. How can I support your work, Pia?
Oh, I'm here. The problems we have with the climate change is globally, and everyone has to do their little point that person is able to do. And like many drops of water make a sea. If all of us who do what they could do, we might come through better. But with my rucksack of politics, I always say to the people, go into politics. There are too many men. So women, get up. Men, learn to look after the baby, that the woman can go into politics. So, no, that's a bit beside now. But it's really, we have a problem that the politicians have this wrong intention. Often they do not look anymore. I guess it was better years ago for the community. Like we say, the country is only good if the poor one get good, somehow like this. So do not forget to be involved in politics. It doesn't, I guess, it doesn't cost a lot. You just get involved, find your own group, and then you get support, and here you are.
Oh, yeah, that so inspires me. I think we probably have many of the same barriers and dynamics that you're talking about, where there's definitely barriers to civic participation. There's an atmosphere where it doesn't feel safe very often for self-identifying women or individuals of color to participate in a public sphere. One of the things that I find powerful too about the model that you're describing is taking a very holistic approach to fighting climate chaos. For us too, Pia, we think about not only our litigation, how we communicate about that, to use that to create pressure, but also we integrate that as a triple threat with law reform. I think what was one of the things that I find particularly inspiring about our Mather case is that we were able to take the voice of 7 youth and have them speak truth to power to the Ontario government, and to be able to really challenge the government's decision to significantly weaken the 2030 climate targets that they had set, which in some respects, the political process can sometimes make those drops of water feel insignificant, but we were able to use the court of law in that instance to really give them such a strong political voice. And so I'm wondering, Pia, over time, I see in the same way that governments are becoming so much more sophisticated around making global inaction look like action, or trying to make the public believe they're taking action. Corporations are becoming more sophisticated in their greenwashing. We recently filed a notice of claim against Fortis BC under the Business Practices and Consumer Protection Act related to greenwashing, but also like litigation strategies are becoming more complex and sophisticated. So for us, like it sounds like we've had a similar path of like several years ago being inspired by a case and the uncertainty and having to pull all of these different tools together on top of a really strong legal case and really strong facts. And so going forward, like, what do you see might be the future opportunities or things that we need to be mindful of as we see that not only our climate case, your climate case, but other climate litigation around the world is just starting to have some kind of like momentum in being able to mobilize public opinion and public movements? We go from here, Pia. It's becoming so much more complicated, but we have so many more tools to use too.
Yeah.
Well, also, I think one thing that has been interesting is the degree to which the success of Pia's group spun around the world. I mean, really, within days, they were the rock stars of the climate action groups. It was amazing. And everyone I heard from Jamaica to Uganda knew about the Swiss women who had just won their court case. And I think this hearing about people's successes and sharing information about what we've done, I think there's this sense that we can really grow from each other. And I'm wondering now if we could move to the questions from the participants. There are a number of them in the Q&A, and Ricky is going to moderate them for us, and she'll direct them to either Pia or to you, Tracy. And then we'll come back for a very quick conclusion and let everybody get on with their day. So thank you both. Very, very interesting. And it really is amazing the way the way climate litigation has just taken off. I'm sure there are several other big cases that are about to be heard in the coming year, which will also have an impact on the rights of the connection between climate and rights. So Ricky, can you take us to the questions?
Lots of questions, and I've tried to group them into 3 or 4 areas. And the first one, the first group is about the implications for the Swiss Federal Council's decision in August, which are, is there anything that people from outside Switzerland, like the ones on this call, can do, or that you are doing to make sure that the Federal Council comes to a positive decision? And there's also a question about, if it does, what are the implications for the other branches of the legislature and the decision-making in Switzerland? So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, one big help is that your newspaper in your countries, in your spots, would make more publicity, because the journalists, they do understand what's going on, and they would write about, because in all the countries we have the fact that many people do not understand how serious it is. They do not agree to that it's necessary to take measures. And if other countries have the knowledge and support doing more, that switches over to Europe, to all other countries. That one thing you can do in your country, tell to those who you know, the journalists, tell them, ask them, they have written already, and people would read it. And it's impressive for them to hear that especially Switzerland is not doing the right thing. That's impressive. And of course, be in touch with all your friends and not friends to tell them about what's going on. That helps the whole system. I have not one idea you could, unless you do not have relatives here, and so you tell them how impressed you are, and so it would help, because those who do not want to accept that they have to do more, they need something from outside, that it's no good, to realize that's no good their way. So every connection, networking is the secret to everything.
Yeah, Pia, I'll just add to what you're sharing. Very often when one thinks about the impact of legal precedent, we don't necessarily always think about how powerful that communication is when it's translated through journalism, when it's translated through media. And when I think about, for us, having looked at different levers on how we hold the Ford government accountable in the province of Ontario in Canada, what was really powerful for us as well is for climate facts on the implications for future generations, for youth to be able to have such a strong political voice in the face of what can be a hostile political environment and a silent media landscape. And so for us too, that was our experience of finding that opportunity on how the courts can provide that leverage, both within provinces, but also federally. So one doesn't necessarily, it's not a conventional tool, like you said, in terms of how we're thinking of creating political change.
Well, once the BBC got hold of it, you couldn't buy that publicity anywhere. The BBC took you, Pia, and all your friends around the world in a way that I think your group had never dreamed of. I know that you've had calls from everywhere, haven't you, to come and talk, to present, to do interviews. It's been wonderful. What has been your experience in dealing with the aftermath, the global aftermath of your win?
Well, they were all, how to say, they were surprised and they really liked that decision. Wherever we could present our case, they thought it's great. And that's also now, it's very positive for us. And then they realize what could they do on their spot might be. We have, I think the impressive group is a women group in South Korea. They want to copy us one-to-one. And
Great.
however, what comes out, they are active and they are motivated because they have the long view. It's possible to win. That's important. And for me, when people ask me, oh, what you do with your 74 years, you could do less. I tell them, for me, it's easier to be engaged than not being able to do anything. I would get depressed. Doing something helps you to come over it, and it gives you the power to go on. And that's might be not just for me, that's for all. Listen now, do it, engage yourself, and it helps you, makes you more happy than your experience with not being able to do anything. That makes negative feelings, could make you depressive and so on.
Right.
So just try. Go ahead.
Yes, it's always fun to hear how surprised people are that these old ladies can still do it.
That's why.
Ricky.
That's the explication.
Ricky.
Yes, if I could move on to the next set of questions. There are several more sets, but one of them is about the cost of litigation. Everybody knows that when lawyers charge full fees, it gets very expensive. So people are asking, was some of this work pro bono, or was it at a discounted rate? And how was it paid for? Like, did the KlimaSeniorinnen's contribute, or was it all Greenpeace? And I guess the same question would apply to Tracy about your funding, about pro bono work, and how are we able to manage this?
Well, it's in the constitution of our NGO. What we are not able to pay, Greenpeace would have to. And it's quite easy. Our financial woman, she takes all the bills, she pays them, and the next one comes, she sends it to Greenpeace. So easy.
So I can
deeper pockets.
Yeah, not all. I guess Greenpeace has a big interest to support those who have a big valued intention and so on, but they cannot support all these courts. I mean, but Greenpeace can support the knowledge, and might be that can say, okay, here we can support too, but usually people in their own country have to find the foundation, and so yeah, it's not easy. One has to know that it will cost. It costs power, it costs time, it costs money, Yeah. But it's worthwhile. Otherwise, where do we go?
So true, Pia. I can also speak from the perspective of Ecojustice Canada. We have a team of approximately 30 staff lawyers from coast to coast. If you can think about environmental law lawyers, where is the lucrative corporate practice in environmental law? It's representing corporations and polluters. And so when you think about what we have to offer at Ecojustice Canada in terms of being able to provide a living to some of the top legal minds in environmental law, we have folks who intentionally choose to work on behalf of nature, to work on behalf of fighting the climate crisis, rather than pursuing lucrative legal careers. And so what drives our team is a commitment to the environment, a commitment to creating legal precedent in a space of law that they're deeply passionate about. We are only able to do this work because of all of the supporters who make it possible for us to be able to have such a committed team. And also, our supporters make it possible for us to retain external counsel, which when you're trying to create precedent-setting law, especially those intersections between rights-based approaches and environmental law, I mean, you really do need the resources to find the right legal minds. And so it really ends up being thousands of folks that have made our legal work possible. And so there's low bono, pro bono, and folks who make a lot of personal sacrifices to be able to engage into the front lines of the environmental movement as lawyers.
Okay, I wonder, Ricky, if we could move along and have maybe another couple of questions, and then we'll try and wrap up.
All right. Well, I'll toss you the last two sets of questions together.
Okay.
And the first one is about trying to build a more global momentum around what is being learned from all of these different court cases and efforts, whether it's in the Netherlands or Portugal or Canada or Switzerland or South Korea. Is that moving anywhere? And if so, what does it look like? And how can we support it? The second set of questions is also about collaboration, but it's more about intergenerational collaboration. And that is around a lot of the youth-led climate challenges that are coming forward, and how are they relating to this effort by seniors, and how can we better integrate this? And finally, this is not a question, this is a comment, which is a number of the people on both in the chat and in the questions are saying, how can we get involved? And one of the things that's coming up in the chat and that I want to mention is, first of all, Climate Legacy is devoted to trying to make available to Canadians, especially Canadian seniors, what they can be doing. But there's also Seniors for Climate, who is planning on October 1st, a Seniors Day of Action in support of climate. So 2 questions and a comment around action.
Could you remind us of the first question again?
Yes. The first question is about the international linkages. How are we building, or should we be doing more to build the exchange of information and knowledge around these legal and human rights challenges, so that every country does not have to reinvent the wheel, and every country's citizens can push their governments.
Mm.
Well, I'd like to add to that for Tracy. Does the Climate Litigation Network play some of this role?
I mean, we work very much within Coalition. I was just enjoying seeing in the chat a number of our ANGO partners who work in solidarity. They span from Indigenous-led organizations, youth-led organizations, seniors-led organizations. Pia, you just so inspired me. I'm partly of Korean heritage. So the thought of you inspiring some Korean grandmas, some harmonies who are there in like a very non-legalistic, non-activist Asian culture to want to also do a similar thing. So I feel like the questions, we're doing this. And so anyway, I'm like, thank you so much for building this intergenerational dialogue, bringing us all together. And so I think, like Pia said, like so many drops of water, like this is the work. And so all of the ways that we can continue doing these dialogues and communicating and stepping up in different ways, regardless of as a supporter or with your emotional labor and your time and energy within an organization. And Pia, you would say, become a politician too.
Yes. But I can say something to that. I think this is important. And I'm confident we are in a good way. When I grew up, Switzerland for me was the whole world. And young people, also business people, they deal with everybody around the world. So I think we are in a good way. It's already happened a lot, but many do not. But for those who like to be in the house of the snake and stay there, sometimes you have to tell them that our life is depending also on the health and on the people in the south. And then they might realize that we belong together. But I think young people and young businessmen also, business people, they are on the right way, they check it. The question is if they check it in a way we want to have it, or do they think, oh, we can get some money here and there? That's so it's not all of them have the same goal. That's a problem, sure, and that will stay a problem. But I'm confident many like to travel, go there, have good relationship, and we ourselves, if we listen to them, we realize that we are gifted by a big thing. If we listen to them, what's their life? And the second question was about the youth. Our group has a good relationship to them because they think also it's a bit funny, these old women doing this. And they always like it when they have the Klima strike, when I give a 5-minute speech. We have a good relationship, I guess. Oh, no, I guess. I'm convinced it needs both. It needs the legal way and it needs the bottom-up way from the youth now, and the grassroots way is very important. It needs everything.
Yes. And youth and older people bring different sets of skills to the process. And we need all of that. And I think you're right. We're in a very difficult situation here. We are really facing climate chaos. But we have a number of networks and skills and energy that we can bring to it. And we need to try. And you are trying. And this was why it was so wonderful. I was so pleased when you said yes, because your case, your win was so inspiring to everyone. And we need to take those successes from each other and build on those.
Mhm.
So I want to thank all of you, Ricky, Tracy, Pia, for being with us today. When you get a chat, I don't know, Pia, whether you've had a chance to look at the chat since you've been concentrating on your presentation, but there are many wonderful greetings and thank yous to you in the chat, and how much you have inspired people to carry on, to keep working and to build those relationships, those networks that you've talked about. There are 3 small announcements that I would like to make just before we sign off. Some of what you will have seen in the chat. Seniors for Climate is beginning a process to try and build the seniors climate movement in Canada. If you haven't heard about it, please go to seniorsforclimate.org and sign up. Climate Legacy would be delighted to hear from anyone on this webinar who is interested in following up in whatever way is possible. You can get to us through our email. And I've also had a request from the group of 78. When we started, Climate Legacy was a project of the group of 78. And so they get to have a paid political announcement here at the end of the session. Their annual policy conference for this year is going to be Citizens Confront Climate Catastrophe. And it's going to be September 27th, 28th, put that in your agenda. And this is going to look at how people are taking constructive action like the Swiss, like Ecojustice, to force their governments and business to move on climate action, to move it up on their agendas. So put that in your calendars for September 27th and 28th. And don't forget October the 1st, which Seniors for Climate is hoping there will be activities in many, many communities across the country that will put pressure on governments and business to change their ways, and also to build those links across the country that we need. So thanks, everyone. It's been lovely. Hope we can do this again. Take care. Bye.